Boston Bruins players and management has spoken out about the 7-2 loss to the Buffalo Sabres. We're going to be breaking down some of these quotes and taking a look at what the next few games will probably look like from this Boston Bruins team, as well as the morning skate, some lines that came out of this, and some very interesting looks from that skate. We're going to be talking about all of that here in this video. Before we get into it, though, you know we're on the road to 6K with the ultimate goal of surpassing the Boston Bruins in subscribers. But we notice right now that 70% of you guys watching are not subscribed to the channel. If you're looking for a spot to get all of your Boston Bruins news, you're in the right spot. Hit the sub button, join me here on the channel. Like I said, we're covering everything, and hopefully getting that 6K with ultimate surpassing the Boston Bruins subscribers on YouTube. Tough challenge, but your guys' support has been incredible, and I know we can do it. But without any further ado, let's get into our first little tidbit of this video here, which is the look from the morning skate today before we get into all of these quotes. And when we're looking at the morning skate here from Scott McLaughlin, both goalies and 13 skaters are on the Bruins' optional practice today, including Charlie McAvoy, Hampus Lindholm, Brandon Carlo, and Mark Kaslick. Now, Joe Sacco said earlier this morning that Kaslick won't be ready for tomorrow, but he didn't rule out anybody else, which is a very big sign ahead of the next game against the Rangers, a game that we're, of course, looking to win. You know, I said that about the Buffalo Sabres, though, as well, and we saw how that played out, but the big important thing about this right now is that since this is an optional skate, we normally do not see this many skaters on the ice. You know, this is certainly a sign that this team is looking to get better, and obviously, you wouldn't expect everybody on this team to be on the ice for the optional skate. Normally, when you see some of these guys, like Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak, some of these guys who are there every game, 20-plus minutes on the ice or whatever it may be, usually around 15 to 16-plus, they won't normally come out for the optional skate knowing that they have to do the exact same the day after. But when we're looking at this, the rest of the team seems to be on this, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't see Pastrnak or shouldn't see Marchand out here, but rightfully so, you got to give, especially for the veterans, some of these older guys, you got to give the body a rest at some point. But when we're looking at it, a very good turnout for today's morning skate, which gives us a pretty good indication that this team obviously is not happy with this loss, but they're looking to fight back and make sure that this does not happen again. Now, can I say with confidence that it will not happen again? Absolutely not. We've seen multiple games from the Boston Bruins like this season, and it has not been good enough. And that really comes out with the way these players and staff have spoken out about last night's game, especially against one of, if not the worst team in the NHL, the Buffalo Sabres, scoring 7 on you, and you're getting 2 hat-tricks against in that game from J.J. Peterka and from Tage Thompson. An absolute ridiculous stat, but that's not for this video. That's for yesterday's. If you want to go see that, check that out. Pretty funny reaction out of me, you know. We can't do nothing but laugh at this point, but heading into our first quote here from Joe Sacco, it is a pretty big one, so bear with me here for a moment. Just the way we managed our game tonight, I didn't like the way we managed it, Sacco said. You're going to make mistakes in that hockey, and that happens in the course of a game, but it's how we respond right after those mistakes. I felt tonight, be it turnovers in the offensive zone and then not coming back into our Z zone, sorting out our coverage, some poor line changes, obviously not a good response. A couple of goals that we scored, they come out, they respond right away. We have to be better than that next shift. So I would say game management was the most disappointing thing here tonight. And Joe Sacco's not been afraid to say what the issues he's noticed, what issues he's seen on the ice during his Boston Bruins tenure as head coach, and that's something good that we finally get. You know, Jim Montgomery has kind of sugarcoated it here and there when he was head coach, but Joe Sacco has really not been afraid to not just call out the team, but say if a specific line or specific players were really not fulfilling their role. And that's what we saw last night. And he really just goes to say the whole team. And even the team, though, has spoken out about this. You know, Joe Sacco obviously has not been afraid to say it, as I mentioned. And his role as a head coach, he's pushing to become this full-time, take the interim tag off for the Boston Bruins. Now, will that be the plan of attack for the Bruins going forward? I'm not really sure. I think it will depend on what the coaching market and the coaching availability looks like in the offseason for sure. But I think Joe Sacco has certainly put his name out there as a potential Bruins head coach candidate for the foreseeable future. You know, not the result that the Bruins have wanted, but he's certainly been there to guide the team in the right direction when things like this go down. And ultimately, a 7-2 loss may turn around into another big win tomorrow night for the Boston Bruins under Joe Sacco, but it doesn't mean it will happen once again. But I do want to pull up our first quote here of the video going on, or for a second quote, another one from Joe Sacco. He said, "We want to be a good road team. We can't get down a goal or two. You can't let it get away from us." And I feel like that's happening a little bit on the road. We seem to tell ourselves that this game is still within reach, and then we have to have that same attitude on the road. And that's one thing the Boston Bruins as well have really shown that has not been good. The Boston Bruins' road record has not been great. We've been able to see in many occasions, and specifically like this one in KeyBank Arena in Buffalo, a horrible, horrible loss. The energy just gets sucked out of the team in the away locker room, it almost seems like. And sitting in these stadiums, watching these games, and, sitting home watching these games when we're away, you can almost feel like the opposing team's fans, the opposing teams just take over the Boston Bruins, no matter what the case, what the scenario, whatever it is. And this is a prime example of that with the Boston Bruins playing in Buffalo. Still not a great team. Their attendance hasn't been the greatest this year, and just get blown out of the water by them, which is something that is completely ridiculous. But, players have not been shy either about this game, and this is what Mason Lohrei had to say. We give ourselves a chance here in the third, make it 4-2. We got time left on the clock, and in the very next shift, you go out there and give up a goal. It's not, it's just stuff you're not going to win like that. And the way Mason Lohrei's been playing this year, he has certainly the right to be able to speak out about this, speak out about these things. He has been a player that has really developed over this season and certainly trending in the right direction, heading into out of his rookie contract, I could say. And he's really been able to almost withhold this veteran tag on his name, and his reaction is the way he's feeling about these games certainly has a veteran presence to him. With him getting the first goal for this game for the Boston Bruins, this was a very good reaction from him. You'd like to see these things out of these young guys and kind of lead the entire team. We have our captains, we have our assistants, we have our veterans, but when everybody on this team is not reacting in the right way, and I shouldn't say not reacting, not getting the game going in the right direction, everybody needs to start speaking out about this. And I think Mason Lohrei, a Bruin that's here to stay for quite some time, has really been a big part of what this team needs for the future. So when we're looking at that, when we're looking at these events and quotes here from these younger guys, it's very good to see that they're also in this game. They're as committed as everybody else, and they're ready to go out and try and make this team the way that they grew up watching it in a very successful Boston Bruins team. But I did want to pull up this once again, the Boston Bruins hockey stat card from last night against the Sabres. And you see, obviously, Andrew Peeke, Nikita Zadorov at the bottom there, the first-line defensive pairing for last night. And that kind of goes hand in hand with what I had to say earlier regarding the morning skate. You see some of these guys come in, a lot of these guys playing well above their role. Andrew Peeke, Nikita Zadorov wouldn't say they're first-line players. Andrew Peeke has played the third-line right defense for, the past few seasons with the Boston Bruins since we acquired him, this year and last year. And Zadorov has been a player that you want to see up there, but still just really has not been great this season. When you have your top three defensemen out, you need to see everybody step up. And although they're playing out of their roles, they've been playing quite all right, I should say, apart from Nikita Zadorov over the past, a couple weeks and months since we've seen Hampus Lindholm, Brandon Carlo out only last game, but Charlie McAvoy as well. And looking at these, it's going to be nice to see if all of these players right here do return to the lineup here tomorrow night. And if we see it, hopefully we see a major turn in defense for this Boston Bruins team. And of course, when you're looking at these lines, these are not NHL lines, ladies and gentlemen. We know that these are very, very poor lines to see at the NHL level. Nikita Zadorov, Andrew Peeke, Michael Callahan, Jordan Oesterle, Mason Lohrei, Parker Wotherspoon. That second line is a full AHL line. That is a full AHL defensive pairing. And it's not something that we can go with every game. And really, I don't want to say they're the reason, because they're absolutely not. Is a whole team effort for their losses of this Boston Bruins team. But when you're looking at this, it certainly isn't a help. Not due to their, skill level. They're still very good, but the experience is something that needs to get onto these guys before they can actually, stay consistent. Jordan Oesterle's been fantastic in this role for him being called up over the past, whatever, maybe month or two to just fill in those roles, and he's been succeeding at that. But Michael Callahan, fifth or sixth NHL game, and in his fourth, going up against Rantanen or not Rantanen, sorry, because he was traded, McKinnon and Makar and all of those guys in that first game. So you're putting him in a tough position, but ultimately it's what you have to do to at least get by these games. And as we look once again to the schedule of upcoming. The Winnipeg Jets tomorrow. I do apologize. I thought that was the Rangers. The Rangers are on February 1st, the Saturday. Minnesota, New York, and Vegas. All games are going to be very, very tough, and games that the Bruins are going to need to compete if they don't want to be embarrassed. And looking at the New York Rangers, we've seen them at the lower part of the standings this season, starting to heat up a bit. I don't want to say they're too good, but it's better to see because the Bruins have played good against good teams, bad against bad teams. But the Jets, 2 New York games, Minnesota and Vegas are going to be a tough look. But before we end this one off, I do have one final quote here from Brad Marchand, kind of going over what the team has thought and the way the team has been really working out. He says, we can't afford to have games like this where we're not prepared. We need every point. And, Brad Marchand kind of kept quiet over these past few games, and certainly something that we're assuming that he's speaking out quite a bit in the locker room for. But over the media side of things, we know he's not a big media guy. He don't like to speak to the media too much on issues when even asked about him. But overall, seeing Brad Marchand kind of keep this mellow, hopefully we're seeing a tone set in the locker room from him and just, keeping everybody in positive spirit, because obviously it's not fun to lose. We know we don't like to lose, but it's part of the game. And, ultimately, you're not going to have some fun games. You're not going to have some fun seasons, but this one for the Boston Bruins is something that nobody really expected. So hopefully we do see a big turnaround. I can't predict anything, and I don't want to predict anything because I don't want to maybe throw a jinx out there or whatnot, but it certainly does seem like that this Boston Bruins team has really been down in the dumps, and hopefully we can see some big turnarounds here in the coming games. But, the ones are going to want to win, especially as they head closer to the trade deadline. And one thing I wanted to mention as well for this schedule here is this is the final game against Vegas February 8th before the Four Nations face-off, or whatever you want to call it, the Four Nations Cup. And then they resume February 22nd. So a good break for the Bruins coming there, but hopefully we do see some success before that, before we do see the second half of the season come around. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. Let me know what you think about the quotes here from the Bruins players and Joe Sacco. Certainly stuff that, we're always hearing from every kind of team that's not really getting the success they want to, but what more can you say at this point? They've pretty much said everything in the book, and ultimately it's more so now we need to see the reaction on the ice than in the media, in the locker room and whatnot. So, like I said, let me know what you think. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing up. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.